We live in a country where politicians are more afraid of voters than voters are of politicians. That's how we want it. That feels filthier. That feels like a grosser part of rock and roll, but not what I think. And you know that.
Over to you, Chris. I'm shook.
Cool story, comma, bro.
Welcome, everyone, to Whole Hog Politics. I'm Bill Sammon, joined by my old pal, Chris Stirewalt, who is the author of Whole Hog Politics, the must-read political newsletter published at thehill.com. Chris, so much to get to. Kristi Noem, Markwayne Mullin, James Talarico, Graham Platner, the war in Iran. I might even squeeze in a music trivia question to you if you're feeling.
We've been lacking in this area.
We've been a little. Maybe we start out with the music trivia. Let's just dispense with it.
I'm ready.
In honor of the German Chancellor's visit to the White House this week.
Okay.
My question is as follows: what was the only German language song?
Nein und nein sich Luftballons.
Okay, well let me. Okay, well, wow, that's good, because my question was going to be this. It was twofold. What was the only German language song to top the Billboard charts? In other words, to get to number one. And then I was going to also point out that there was another German language song.
Der Kommissar?
You have the artist correct.
But it wasn't Der Kommissar.
That's the right artist, but it's a different song, and it's a song about my favorite composer.
Oh, Amadeus.
Rock Me Amadeus was the only number one German language song to top the Billboard charts at number one. 99 Luftballons came in at number two because it couldn't get past Jump by Van Halen. But that's another story.
Sorry, Nina. Sorry, Germany. Van Halen I'm prepared to put Van Halen even above Led Zeppelin as the ultimate guitar.
Wow. I mean, certainly early Van Halen, the debut album by Van Halen with, Running with the Devil and Jamie's Crying and all that was just
Unchained. And 1984 is a masterwork. Now we're not talking about
Van Hagar. That album.
No hate to Sammy Hagar, but we're obviously not talking about Van Hagar.
No.
But the first 3 or 4 albums by Van Halen are.
Yeah. They were, I don't know about the Led Zeppelin thing, but we'll fight about that another day. Yes. Chris, let's start with Kristi Noem. She is out. The DHS secretary is out of a job, or at least out of that job. They gave her a fake job because President Trump finally concluded that she just was no longer worth the trouble. The final straw was when Kristi Noem tried to say that President Trump had signed off on an advertising campaign, a taxpayer-funded advertising campaign in which $220 million were spent allegedly promoting, DHS, but a lot of people thought it was more of a vanity project for Kristi Noem. I think we have a piece of that advertising campaign we can play for you now.
Why do I love these wide open spaces? They remind me of why our forefathers came here, not just for its beauty, but for the freedom only America provides. I'm Kristi Noem. From the cowboys who tamed the West, to the titans who built our cities, to the dreamers who chased the impossible, America has always rewarded vision and grit. Our greatness calls people to us.
There's Mount Rushmore in the background, and she's riding with the buffalo. So my question, Chris, and we're going to get to Markwayne Mullin in a minute, but I want to ask about Kristi Noem. Was it smart politically for the president to get rid of this, what had turned into a lightning rod for the administration in the run up to the midterms? Was this a good move?
Yeah, I mean, we can ask the question about maximizing the effect and about whether this will help them end the DHS shutdown, and there are knock-on effects. But I guess the lesson of Kristi Noem is the same one that Republicans have been learning, and some Democrats have learned over time, which is what is good or possible for Donald Trump does not mean that it is good or possible for you. And the open sort of entrepreneurial, do whatever you think you can get away with approach that this administration has carried. Kristi Noem was doing things in a very Trumpian, or what she thought of as a very Trumpian way, right? She attacked, she lied, she self-promoted, she broke the rules, she did whatever she wanted to do. She took the House for herself on the military bit. She just did, right? She just did the things that she wanted to do. And
you posed in front of those prisoners down in where was it, El Salvador or whatever it was.
Right. And the Kristi Noem thought that she could do the same things that Donald Trump did. And Donald Trump eats alone, right? He does not he does not extend the full beneficence of his own standards to the people around him. And as I wrote about today, the entrepreneurial spirit of the administration, where you do whatever you think you can do, and it's sort of scorpions in a bottle approach. We have all these different people with these different points of view. You have Marco Rubio and JD Vance. You have people with sharply differing views. The Team Rubio people have been much more successful than we could say, like the RFK, Tulsi Gabbard, whatever that new kind of MAGA is, a lot more successful. And once your country is at war, right, and things are serious, and we're removing governments in different continents and doing all this stuff, Kristi Noem starts to look pretty unaffordable. And I think this is probably overdue. And the handwriting was certainly on the wall when Trump let Tom Homan shut her down. Essentially, Tom Homan rebuked her publicly, and Tom Homan was rewarded by taking over for Kristi Noem's choice to run the operations in Minneapolis. And I think that was the beginning of the end. And then right-wing media, conservative media, the pylon started. The Wall Street Journal, the New York Post was relentless. And then the crescendo moment came when Senator John Kennedy from Louisiana basically ate her liver. Ate her liver like Hannibal Lecter at that committee. And that was it.
Yeah. I'm so glad you brought up the Marco Rubio comparison, because I've been thinking along the same lines. You know, as a starting point, the cabinet members all have to profess fealty, and that is the word, fealty, to Donald Trump. But within that universe, there's a way to do that where you're kind of keeping it cool, and there's a way to do that the way Kristi Noem did it. And Marco Rubio is a perfect example of, you know, even though the guy has 63 jobs and he keeps going to Rubio is at least professing a humility, if you will, where he's, hey, boss man, I'm just doing my thing. You know, I'm cool. And is not, he doesn't come off as a self-promoter. He doesn't come off as a guy that's trying to figure out how much grift can I get for myself while I'm in this gig. Whereas maybe the same couldn't be said for Kristi Noem. Not only did she have this crazy advertising campaign, but remember, you talked about Minneapolis. She was the one that talked about, who was it, Renee Good as a domestic terrorist, which was an unfortunate, choice of words. There's the Corey Lewandowski allegations that she was carrying on with this Corey Lewandowski. And again, if you're Donald Trump and he consumes all of this media, you have to imagine that he says, at some point, this person is no longer worth the trouble. And it was that final straw that cost her job, that advertising campaign. I want to talk about her successor, Chris, a guy that a lot of people didn't know much about, but now are finding out about him quite a bit. A guy named Markwayne Mullin. He is a senator from the state of Oklahoma. He Why don't we introduce our discussion of Mr. Mullin by showing a soundbite of him in a hearing where he is questioning Teamsters boss.
Oh, the
Sean
classic.
O'Brien.
Yeah, there you
Take a
go.
look at that clip if we have it.
Sir, this is a time, this is a place. If you want to run your mouth, we can be two consenting adults. We can finish it here.
Okay, that's fine. Perfect.
You want to do it now?
I'd love to do it right now.
Well, stand your butt up then.
You stand your butt up.
Oh, hold on.
Big
Oh,
guy.
stop it.
Is that your solution every poll?
No, sit down.
Oh, you're a clown.
Sit down. Okay. You know, you're a United States Senator. Sit down.
Active.
Oh, okay.
Sit down, please.
All right.
Can I respond, Mr.
Hold
Chairman?
it.
So much going on in that clip, from Bernie Sanders saying you're a United States Senator to Mullin starting to take off his wedding ring because I think he really thought he was going to roll in the dirt with this guy and mixed up. By the way, interestingly, he is now friends with this Teamsters boss. They've patched it up and they talk fairly regularly now. And in fact, the Teamsters boss this morning put out a statement of support for Mullin becoming the DHS secretary. And in fact, I believe it's one of the reasons that the Teamsters, his friendship now with Mullin is one of the reasons the Teamsters did not endorse Kamala Harris, I'm told. But anyway, let's talk about Mullin because he has an interesting backstory. He was born on a ranch in Oklahoma. His dad ran a plumbing company. He became a mixed martial arts fighter. He's a member of the Cherokee Nation. He went off to college on a wrestling scholarship, but had to sort of leave college because his dad took ill. It was sort of a kind of a George Bailey kind of a moment where he had to come back, take care of the family business, and actually turned it into quite a big operation and started several other companies. Didn't get around to getting his college degree for another dozen or more years. He managed to get an associate's degree, which, by the way, makes him the only senator that does not have at least a bachelor's degree. He then, by the way, he started a home improvement radio talk call-in show on a local radio station. So he probably knows his way around a few DeWalt power tools. And then he gets elected to Congress, and then of course in the Senate. And now he's going to be the DHS secretary. My question to you, Chris, is will he be more? You mentioned Tom Homan, the border czar, as more of a rational voice in this whole immigration debate. Will Mullin be more in the mold of a Homan than he will be like a Kristi Noem?
Well, what do you think that Markwayne Mullin thinks about Stephen Miller? Right? I don't know. I don't claim any special knowledge, but I doubt that Markwayne Mullin is afraid of Stephen Miller. Yeah. I doubt that Markwayne Mullin is eager to have Stephen Miller's approval, or that he's afraid of losing it. This is one of the hallmarks of the first Trump cabinet. So Rubio is different than the rest because Rubio had his own career and was qualified. He's the kind of person that would become your Secretary of State. So Rubio had his own sort of gravitas and would remind you of the people who were in the first Trump administration, right? Bill Barr, former senators, people of import. The rest of the cabinet are people who would not have had those jobs under any other Republican president, right? Pam Bondi, Kash Patel,
Pete Hegseth.
Definitely Pete Hegseth. Nobody was going to make Pete Hegseth the Secretary of Defense other than Donald Trump. And you can go down the list. So you have all these people, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who basically owe their existence and their power entirely to Donald Trump. Well, I guess you could say Doug Burgum is a normal selection. Yeah. And we could think of others. Scott Bessent is a normal kind of selection. I guess that's why he felt he had the power to stand up to Elon Musk.
Yeah. But although he wanted to roll in the dirt too. There's just a lot of fighting going on.
These guys want to fight. But the difference of if you're Markwayne Mullin and you have the infighting of this administration, and Stephen Miller come. So when Stephen Miller went to Kristi Noem and was applying public pressure to Kristi Noem to increase the visibility and pain of deportation.
Yeah.
Kristi Noem's approach to deportation was, we're going to make them self-deport because we're going to make it so awful looking that they will flee. And this is her big selling point, which is the brutality that we use and the high visibility raids that we use are really effective because they're forcing people to flee the country. And I can't imagine that Markwayne Mullin, who is a member of the Cherokee Nation, is going to say, yeah, let's try to terrify people as much as we can.
Yeah.
Let's make this look as bad as possible. And that Homan was the voice of that and said, no, you have to look professional. You have to make people feel comfortable that you're enforcing the law fairly, and that you may have to use hard tactics and you may have to make hard choices, but you cannot make yourself look like a bunch of brown shirts. Yeah. And I can't imagine that Markwayne Mullin will think that that's a good idea from Stephen Miller or want to go along with it. But the difference here, and I think this is why this is a significant hire for this administration, Markwayne Mullin, there are definitely people who will say, this guy was an election denier, which he was election denial-ish. He definitely,
on January 6th, he
right.
helped the to literally man the barricades and to hold off the, to try to protect the Capitol Hill police.
That's what I was going to say. He played the game, the crummy game that a lot of Republicans played, where they were like, we know this is going to fail, so let's try to get both the best of both worlds, in which the election is certified, but we've gotten on the record saying that we're trying to fight it. So he definitely, he was along with, by the way, Kevin McCarthy and Steve Scalise and a bunch of other people who played that little game. But Markwayne Mullin enjoys the respect of his colleagues. He is a person who, and I have talked to plenty of senators about him, they may have their beef about Mullin on a particular issue, or think that he is too much of brings too much MMA energy or whatever else, but they think he's honest, right?
They kind of like him.
Yeah, they think he's honest in his dealings with them, and they think that he is trying to accomplish things. And Trump likes him because he's a big, strong, tough guy, and Trump likes him because of the MMA thing, and he likes him because he looks straight out of Central Casting. He looks like Walker, Texas Ranger. Yeah. And that makes Donald Trump feel good about it. And look, I don't know that it will be enough to get this shutdown ended. I don't know that it will be enough to start to restore the agency's reputation to a substantial degree. But I know that this is the choice of a grown-up administration, not the wild, very online urgings of Trump, the Trump 2.0, 1.0. So I think we're in Trump 2.0, 2.0.
Yeah. And by the way, Senator John Thune, the majority leader, said that by getting rid of Kristi Noem, that this will go a long way to trying to convince Democrats to fund DHS, because that was one of their big sticking points. I still think there's a bunch of other sticking points, but we'll see how that goes. Chris, we need to talk about Texas. The Senate race in Texas, so significant. And let's zoom out for a minute. The reason we are paying so much attention to the Senate race in Texas, which had a primary this week, was because Democrats looked at Texas longingly as maybe this is a place where we can pick up a Senate seat, because maybe we can take control of the Senate in November. All we got to do is net 4 seats. That's a tall order, but if we are going to do it, we'd have to do it in places like Texas. So we go into this primary. You got 2 Republicans, 2 Maine Republicans and 2 Maine Democrats. They're each trying to get advance to become the nominees of their respective parties. And of those 4 people, you have 4 possible matchups, 3 of which look like they would be fine for Republicans to win in November. One of which maybe is a question mark. And that one matchup was to have James Talarico, the Democrat, face off against is it Greg Paxton, or what's his first name?
Ken
Paxton, who is the Attorney General of Texas. And the reason Democrats wanted that matchup was because Talarico seemed less radioactive than his Democratic rival, Jasmine Crockett, whereas Paxton seemed more radioactive than his Republican rival, John Cornyn, the incumbent senator. So that's the matchup that the Democrats hoped for. Now, coming out of Tuesday, a couple things are now in play that I don't think are great for Democrats. One, they got half of what they wanted. They got Talarico to beat Jasmine Crockett. Fair enough. So he's the nominee. That's settled. He's going to be on the ballot in November. But on the Republican side, you know, and we always knew the Republicans were going to end up going to a runoff, but John Cornyn ended up slightly outperforming Ken Paxton. And as a result of that, Donald Trump is now saying, and very strongly hinting, I should say, that he would like to endorse Cornyn and ask Paxton to kindly step aside so that we can win this election and not get into a bloody,
I don't know how kindly,
$100 million ugly, you know, runoff fight that's going to damage whoever emerges, you know, in the general election and make them more vulnerable to the Democrats. So, I guess my question is, do you agree that the Democrats now, their prospects for a pickup in Texas, given these two developments, one, oh, no, I should say, and let me just say one other thing. I'm sorry to go on so long about this. The other development, in addition to this idea that, you know, Trump may be able to get Cornyn the nominate, or Cornyn, you know, the nod, is that we're now starting to learn more about James Talarico. Like the Oppo research is now coming out of the woodwork on the guy. And I think during his, you know, when he was fighting with Jasmine Crockett, a lot of the attention was on all the wild things that Jasmine Crockett said. And by comparison, Talarico looked like a, you know, kind of a normie. But now that she's out of the way, a lot of the Republicans are going into the Oppo files on him. I think I have a clip of some of the stuff the Republicans are putting out on him. Can we play that clip?
Southern border should be like our front porch. There should be a giant welcome mat out front and a lock on the door.
Modern science obviously recognizes that there are many more than two biological sexes. In fact, there are 6.
God is both masculine and feminine and everything in between. God is non-binary.
So I think you're going to see a lot of those things come out. And so my question is, those two developments. One, you're going to now see Talarico portrayed as a real hard lefty, talking about 6 biological genders, God is non-binary, et cetera, et cetera. And then 2, you may see Cornyn get the nomination without too much scar tissue. What say you?
Well, I think the question about Talarico is he is a sort of John Ossofian figure
From Georgia.
Yeah. And so is he? Texas is more Republican than Georgia. Not a lot more Republican, but Texas is a very politically inelastic state. We're seeing a lot of swing among Hispanic voters in Texas. Republicans believe that it's permanent swing in their direction. We saw some results in the Hispanic majority counties in South Texas that suggest maybe not. But there is a lot of fluidity, at least in the Hispanic vote in Texas. The idea of him being able to win, of Talarico being able to win, is dependent, I would say, it is 98% dependent on Ken Paxton getting through. They need the odium of Ken Paxton is what is necessary to get. And it would also be, so that would be the first precondition, that he would need Paxton to come out of this. And then the next precondition is that he gets better and stops, like, yes, Republicans will go through all the old sermons and all the clips and everything where he is having big pajama energy and is whatever. But he could still do it, right? He would have to get better. He would have to stop making, basically, Talarico needs to stop making theological arguments and start making
yeah, because he makes everything is through the prism of, like abortion is okay
Right.
because the Bible says it, it's
Right.
good, and transgender is good. Everything is interpreted through the prism of the Bible says it.
So he has to move on to be not. So he would have to find a way to moderate. He has a moderate sound. His affect is moderate,
But a
his
liberal
policies-
record.
But his policies are progressive.
Yeah.
Beyond liberal. And
You're right.
there wasn't a bunch of difference between Jasmine Crockett and James Talarico ideologically. So he would first need Ken Paxton, and then second, he would have to find a way to moderate enough to get enough of those suburban swing voters to come his direction. Now, on the question of Paxton, you notice that the president has not yet done the thing that he says he's going to do. He did an interview with Politico. President said, like, what it would be very bad, if Ken Paxton didn't drop out, because what the president has said is, I'm going to make an endorsement. It's probably going to be John Cornyn, wink, wink, wink. And whoever else I don't endorse better drop out. And then Ken Paxton said, I'm not dropping out. I'm not dropping out of anything. And because Ken Paxton is quite right to say that if you held the runoff today, he would win, right? He would get more of however many of Wesley Hunt's voters show up. Paxton starts with the advantage with those folks. And he would win a runoff if it were held today. Now, I saw some numbers out of Texas, and these are not, I would not get a tattoo of these numbers, but that indicated that a Trump endorsement would not be dispositive, right? That Trump endorsing Cornyn and Paxton staying in is not a guarantee. And we can think back to the kind of episode that the president is trying to avoid, which is when he endorsed Luther Strange, the incumbent appointed senator from Alabama, and Roy Moore still won, right?
Yeah, right. You don't want that. That's not a good look.
And Trump has an extraordinarily good track record in his endorsements because he has extraordinarily high favorability among he has incumbent president favorability numbers in his own party, and his track record is good. His track record has gotten better because he doesn't make endorsements in races that he thinks he's going to lose. Yeah. So he has become much more strategic about his endorsements. So now there's a negotiation taking place between Ken Paxton, who is facing oblivion, basically. If he doesn't retain an elective office, if he doesn't stay in the Senate, there's no place for him to go. He has financial problems. He has had a history of legal problems. It's a wreck. So this is not a guy who can just say, like, oh, well, he's not Markwayne Mullin, who's like, well, I guess I'll be rich and have.
Well, he's not the guy that Trump was going to put into DHS to solve a twofer.
Right.
That was not going to happen.
He is not a person who would win approval and confirmation by the United States Senate. So the negotiation is taking place about how that would happen. So I think the reason you're seeing this play out, the MAGA Texas hates John Cornyn. Like God hates sin. They hate him. They believe that he is a turncoat and he is the kind of Mitch McConnell, Chamber of Commerce, Reaganite squish that doesn't know what time it is. And they hate him. And they feel that he has betrayed them time and time again. For the president to say to those voters, now, we need to hold the United States Senate. Think about what the president has already told Texas to do. You gotta gerrymander. And that has been a goat rodeo, right? That has been an ordeal for Texas. And it doesn't look like it's going to be a dummy mander. It doesn't look like they're going to draw themselves into a loss of seats. But right now, the original estimate of like, oh, we'll pick up 5 seats easily in the House. Maybe not. Yeah, maybe it's 3, maybe it's 2. What's going on with Hispanic voters? The Texas Republicans have been through a lot. at the president's demand. And if he then comes back and says, and now you must vote for John Cornyn, who you don't like, that's a big matzo ball to have hanging out.
Yeah. But on the other hand, and I say this all the time, and we'll get into this when we talk about Iran, just to a large degree, MAGA is what Trump says at any given moment, right?
No, I know that it is true that MAGA is a movement that proper uppercase MAGA is defined by Donald Trump's political career.
Yeah.
But we also know that
there are some principles down there, lurking convictions.
And you know what the core principle is? We hate the establishment.
Yeah.
The core principle goes back to Pat Buchanan. It goes back. Do you remember in Pennsylvania where they couldn't get the Kathy Barnett, I believe was her name, and they couldn't get her to drop out of the gubernatorial election in Pennsylvania, or was it the Senate race? It was the Senate race in Pennsylvania, in the primary there. And she was, and they had Doug Mastriano running for governor. And these were damaging candidates who really hurt Republicans in Pennsylvania and helped Josh Shapiro, helped John Fetterman when he was still a Democrat. All of that, that's what went down. Pennsylvania Republican primary voters rejected strategic voting.
Yeah.
I believe that in Texas, Donald Trump could get John Cornyn over the finish line. I don't disagree with that, but it will be hard to swallow for people who have been voting against Bush's, against David Dewhurst to bring back the old days. There are a group of Texas Republicans who their principle is, we do not like people in neckties. We do not like elites. We do not like the establishment. And we do not like to be told what to do. And Trump, I would just say that from a point of political pragmatism, the president needs to get Ken Paxton to leave. He needs to self-deport. And what can Donald Trump offer Ken Paxton and give Ken Paxton to make him go away? And that's the question. And it's a $250 or $300 million question, because if it's Paxton, right, just as is now happening for Talarico about, oh, look at this goofy thing, look at this mushy thing, look at this soft-headed stuff that he's putting out there. He's not real. He's not a real Christian. He's not a real Christian.
Yeah.
That stuff's coming out. We have not played the Ken Paxton greatest hits yet for the general election audience. And
that's right. That's right.
It would be.
That's why Cornyn would be so much safer for Republicans, because the guy's been a senator for, I don't know, 20 some years.
Maybe Kristi Noem needs a deputy at, what's it called? Southern Shield of America. We'll find out. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. Chris, before we get to our next topic, I just want to remind our viewers that you, in addition to writing Whole Hog Politics,
so true.
You and by the way, let's put up the QR code for Whole Hog Politics so that anyone can scan it and receive your newsletter for free. Again, it's published at thehill.com. But also, Chris, you host The Hill Sunday, a wonderful Sunday morning political talk show. It's on News Nation at 10 a.m. Eastern every Sunday. And I know you've got some plans for this coming weekend show. Anything you want to tease out, Chris, about that show?
And it airs on Nexstar affiliates across the country. Your local CW channel will also have it. We have almost, dare I say, ideal, not quite by accident, but somewhat by accident. We've got Tom Cole, who is the chairman of the House Appropriations Committee. We have big news. We've got they're going to need a defense supplemental. They're talking about $50 billion because we're running out of munitions for the Iran war.
Right.
And so that's cooking up. And then yesterday, I love these guys. It's like Albert Brooks's wife in the movie. What's it called? America.
Coming to America. Or no, it's
No, that's a different movie.
talking about the casino gives the money back. Lost in America.
Lost in America, where his wife is gambling, and she's like 22, and he's in the casino. He's like, "You're up. How much? $35." And then he says to the casino owner, "How much is she down?" And it's like $35,000.
It's such a great movie.
So it is Albert Brooks and also an underrated movie is Defending Your Life. One of my favorite.
I love that.
One
Albert
of my
Brooks
favorite
movie.
movies. He's and broadcast news. What a guy.
Yeah.
Anyway, the House Republicans say they're ready to do another reconciliation bill. They're going to bet.
Yeah.
They're going to bet 22 again, right? They say it's late in the year, it's controversial, but we can do it again, right? All of our dreams can come true. We can do another reconciliation package, and then that way we don't have to do an appropriation for $50 billion that has to get 60 votes in the Senate. We can do 51, and while we're at it, we can do whatever we want, right? We can do all of this stuff. And that is Mike Johnson's answer. And John Thune's answer, I assume, is grow up. I'm not making Susan Collins and John Cornyn and whoever else walk the plank on controversial legislation. It's too late in the year to cook up a healthcare. The Republicans do not have a healthcare plan. It's too late in the year to do a bunch of stuff. So just pass the appropes and get it through. So we've got Tom Cole who can talk about that, the tension there. We have Adam Smith, who is the ranking Democrat on armed services. This is the guy where it's the question about what can Democrats accept as a war powers authorization for funding appropriations. Adam Smith he is not the median Democrat. He is a hawkish Democrat, but he looks like and has the perspectives of the part of the Democratic Party that would be open to a regime change effort in Iran, would be willing to talk about it. What are his conditions? What are the things that he would need to get behind that kind of effort? So I'm stoked, actually.
That sounds like a great show. Chris, by the way, I should also point out that we're shortly going to be taking some questions from our audience, and we've got some really nice questions lined up, including a question on Iran from David Hill. I think we're going to start with David, but I want to just touch on two quick topics before we do that. One, before we get to the last one, before we get to Iran, is Graham Platner. Graham Platner. This guy is running for the Senate in Maine. We've talked about him before on this show. There's a new poll out that shows, and maybe we can put this on the screen, but it shows that Graham Platner, who hasn't, we still got to get through the primaries, right? But if sometimes they do a polling that shows theoretical matchups between this person and that person, and they've got a matchup that shows Graham Platner, who hasn't even gotten through the primary, would beat incumbent Senator Susan Collins if they ended up facing off against each other. So, not to completely restate Graham Platner's CV, but he is a very liberal guy, once described himself as a communist. He's controversial. He's had some kind of a Nazi tattoo removed from his chest. He's called, said very bad things about police. But the thing about him, people say, I was talking to a guy from Maine yesterday, is that he is viewed as authentic. He is viewed as authentic. He is a lobsterman, oysterman in Maine.
Oh my gosh, Bill.
And he right out of Central Casting. He's got the Ernest Hemingway sweater and the beard, and he's a big burly guy. He looks like he could, hold his own against Markwayne Mullin. Although I don't know, I'd probably put my money on Mullin. But what do you make of that poll? And is that a potential pickup for Democrats, that state?
Okay. Susan Collins, is she the luckiest American? I don't know. Susan Collins won. She was the only in 2020, the only Republican who won in a split ticket state with Donald Trump. She has Maine's politics are weird. We should remember Maine has Maine technically has no Democratic senators because the other senator from Maine is nominally an independent, Angus King, the former governor. Maine is weird, right? Maine is basically West Virginia. Yeah, oh no, obviously. Maine is basically West Virginia with a fondant wrapping of Boston or what have you, right? It's Northeast liberal and then Appalachia, basically, right? Interior Maine.
A lot of rural. You get west of the coast, and it's all, like you say, it's West Virginia, basically.
You can go to Mount Katahdin, and you can go a long, long way before you see what looks like liberal Northeast, blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
So, Graham Platner. It is significant that Senator Ruben Gallego from Arizona, who is not as lucky as Susan Collins, Ruben Gallego did a bold thing, and he said, "I don't care. I don't care about the Nazi tattoo he had removed. I don't care about things that he said before. He's got energy. He's got youth. He's a veteran. I'm a veteran. We're doing this. We're going to do it." And right after Gallego did it, it was revealed that Platner's account reposted, boosted a anti-Semitic cuckoo bananas crazy person. Now the campaign says we didn't know that that's what this was. We liked what they were saying about Israel and the Iran war or whatever else. I don't recall what the specific of it was, but we liked the message, but didn't like the messenger. So we have taken that down and we denounced the things that he said. And then right after that, it was revealed, it was found, surfaced, as the internet would say, that Graham Platner had sat down for a gushy interview with another veteran, a former Green Beret, who is also anti-Semitic, right? Or who I have not consumed his catalog, but who Jewish groups say is a potent anti-Semite. And Platner closes the interview by saying, "I'm such a huge fan," or whatever, and I love your. I always watch your stuff. So Gallego endorses, and then Platner regenerates the Nazi stuff. He brings it back. There was a poll, and I hate to say this, University of New Hampshire, but your Pine Tree State poll and your polling generally needs work. DM me if you want some recs on who you might hire and what you might do. But this new poll, which is from a private firm, like a independent polling firm in Maine, I buy it, right? It shows Platner ahead of Mills, but not ahead of Mills by whatever that previous 20 points or whatever.
Janet Mills, the current governor. Democratic governor, who's running in the primary against Platner to face off against the Republican in the Senate general.
And it shows even a bad poll can be useful if it is bad in a consistent way.
Yeah.
What that poll shows us is Platner going from behind in the late fall or early winter. Now he's ahead. He's not ahead by a bunch, but he's ahead. And Janet Mills has to wrestle with this. I think she thought, and I'm sure the people at the Democratic Senatorial Committee and other people who got her into the race said, you have 100% name ID, you have high approval ratings, you have high favorability ratings, you can do this. She is going to have to fight Graham Platner. She is going to have to fight Graham Platner. And can she do it and still beat Susan Collins? That's hard because fighting Graham Platner, who is a radical, right? We've watched Democrats have to do this. Valerie Foushee in North Carolina survived a second primary challenger from a Platner-esque or squad-like candidate down in Durham and suburbs on Tuesday, but it was close. It's hard to fight these people because you dispirit your own base. This is, we talk about blue MAGA and all of that stuff, but populism is not an ideology. It is a methodology. And the use of the tactics of populism and populist insurrection and insurgency that the MAGA folks, I think MAGA used Donald Trump and then Donald Trump used MAGA. I think it pre-existed him and then he changed it. That same energy in the Democratic Party is hard to wrestle with. They have been better, and as the Texas results showed, more strategic about their voting, right? Democrats have been more strategic generally than Republicans have nationally, but is Janet Mills ready to fight a guy who has 10 million profile pieces about him, talking about his sweater and talking about his lobstermanness, talking about he's authentic and talking about all of this stuff. Does stodgy old Janet Mills want to go punch him in the face and then go have that fight?
And she is significantly older than him, which is
she's like 77.
Yeah, that's a factor in today's politics and the Democratic.
And if she won't fight him, Susan Collins can win, even in what will be a very bad year for Republicans in Maine. She could still win, and she's a credible threat. Now, do Maine Democrat? My guess is, and I think this is what we'll see in the California Democratic primaries that haven't sorted themselves out yet. As you get closer to primary day and people lock in, so I think when you say to people long enough before the primary, I think Maine is in June. When you say to people long enough before the primary, who do you like? The old governor lady? Or how about, what if I told you about a sweater-wearing, charismatic oysterman? Oh, I like that guy. I saw clips of him on MSNBC or whatever. And I think as they get closer, the question for Mainers will be, how much do you want this? And in Texas, Democrats said they wanted it enough to pick the more saleable candidate. I don't know whether that's true.
Yeah. Hey, Chris, last thing I want to say, and I do want to tee up David Hill, who's got a great question on Iran. But as we get him on camera, I just want to read.
David Hill is basically a co-host of this show now.
He's on the camera. Guys. David, why don't you tee us up on your question on Iran? Because we haven't even talked about the fact that we've gone to war with another country within the last week. So what's on your mind on Iran?
With respect to a new war in the Middle East and the war in Iran, I think that's going to, and I've heard that that's going to really exasperate an enthusiasm gap, particularly on the right. So, and couple that with the recent primaries and the polling, is the era of electing the craziest in the room, to quote Thomas Massey, is that era ending, and are the adults starting to show up at the ballot box again?
David, this is why you are a co-host of this show. That's quality content. I answer all questions about the Iran conflict with the same thing, which is, what does this look like? The president. Do you remember when Bill and my former colleague Bill Hemmer was doing an interview with President Trump in the early days of the pandemic in 2020, and Bill Hemmer said, wouldn't it be great if we could be back in church, back together by Easter, and everybody was back? And you saw the president was like, yes, that would be great. I would love that. That would be fantastic. And you know that the people, Mike Pence and the people who were doing the coronavirus response management threw their papers up in the air. We're like, we're not ready for, what are you talking about? If the president has a real way so that the war really is 4 or 5 weeks long, and if the United States does not have to put troops in harm's way in Iran, if the Politico had a headline this week was like, Trump keeps taking risks on the economy and he keeps getting away with it. And I don't know about today's jobs numbers, which are not robust. But that's true about a lot of things, right? So Venezuela comes and people say, oh, what are we going to do? And it was like, oh, okay, well, we're just keeping the old regime in place, and we're not occupying Venezuela or whatever. We're moving on. So how lucky is the president? How long does it go on? What are the consequences? I think the hardcore people who feel betrayed by the very action of undertaking a regime change war in the Middle East, I think that the Republicans already had a substantial problem with them. When you get to, I was asked what the most significant political event of 2025 was, and I said it was the assassination of Charlie Kirk, because what it revealed was a terrible schism underneath the MAGA movement, right? It revealed the Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, Megan, like it was it lifted the lid on something that we had not been paying enough attention to. But that's not very many people, right? It's not a ton of voters. It's a fairly narrow sliver of the Republican electorate. I agree 100% that the downward pressure on Republican enthusiasm is a problem when you already have an enthusiasm gap problem. In the most recent congressional generic ballot polling, I think it was Emerson did, the Democrats weren't that far ahead. They were, like, as we talk about all the time here, Democrats need to be more than 3 points because of the way that the country is, the way Congress is constituted. Democrats really need to be 3 points or more ahead to be winning the House. And they weren't in any sort of comfortable margin. But on the enthusiasm gap, it was crazy. It was like it wasn't 2-1 about enthusiasm. And when you look at those numbers in Texas about turnout, the Democrats, and you look at all the special election results for the past year and a half, the Democrats have the turnout advantage. So I think you're right that Republicans don't need any more downward pressure on enthusiasm, because the way that you lose in a landslide is that your own voters give up, right? So you get down to like your floor, but your people are still showing up. They've stopped bringing people with them. They've stopped telling their great Aunt Edna that they're going to take them to the polls and they got to go vote. So you lose the persuasion part, and then you hit your floor. To go to lose in a landslide, you have to go sub-basement. And there is a danger of that for Republicans. But I'm going to cop out and just say, tell me what's going on in Tehran 6 weeks from now. Tell me what the price of a gallon of gas is. Tell me what the unemployment rate is. So the frustration for Democrats is Donald Trump gets away. We started this. We're concluding here, as Kristi Noem learned. Donald Trump gets away with all kind of stuff that doesn't work for other people. Can he get away with undeclared war on Iran that people have said for 50 years was unfeasible and a reckless act? Can he get away with it? I don't know.
Yeah. It's such a great question, David. Thank you for that. By the way, Chris, this morning, for the first time since this war started, I actually was starting to think about, because we all freaked out about the Venezuela thing, and then it turned out within a week or two, it's like, yeah, okay, whatever, like it wasn't that big a deal. Now I understand Iran's a much bigger country and a lot more complicated. It's a whole different thing. But for the first time this morning, I started to wonder to myself, is this kind of gonna go away too? I mean, like everything else just goes away in the news cycle. But before we run out of time, and we're just about out of time,
everything works until it doesn't. This is
right.
This it's like embezzlement, right? Everything works, it's going great until it doesn't, and then it really stops working.
Keith Clark is being a little bashful today. He's not going to appear on camera, but he's as usual has a great question. And this is on Iran also, and he says, unlike historical rally around the flag moments, this military action has debuted with a majority of Americans expressing disapproval. There seems to be numerous specific facets. What are the factors that are driving this unpopularity? This is from our pal Keith Clark. If we had to break it down, Chris, what would be the main factors?
Well, first you left out his I think he is one of your Roman Catholic brothers. So I think you Filius Dei.
Nice. Nice touch.
Is it unpopular? So the initial polling said that it was unpopular. And you should watch the Hill Sunday this weekend because we're going to. So the Fox News poll, which is a high quality poll, Republican and a Democrat, it's got a good model. They've had the same team for a long time now. The Fox poll basically showed, which was taken post, it was in the days immediately after, showed the country evenly split. And it was evenly split. You will not be surprised to hear, because Republicans overwhelmingly like it. They wanted it because they believe what Bill and I were just talking about like, we're going to get away with it. We're going to do the thing. We're going to push the button that everybody said you're not supposed to push. If you heard Pete Hegseth's remarks at the Pentagon this week are like, just Donald Rumsfeld's ghost is like, wait, we can just say stuff. We can just say we have no mercy and we'll kill everybody and blah, 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 blah. A sharp contrast, by the way, to General Keynes, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs.
Yeah, right.
Dignified, modest, expressing sympathy for the families of the fallen, et cetera, et cetera. But Republicans are. Did you see the video that the White House posted that was clips of movies? It was like Braveheart and Top Gun and
oh yeah,
Mortal Kombat video game and all this stuff. Like, yeah, we kill everybody. We're doing it. It was super cringe, but that energy is appealing to a lot of Republicans who are like, we can do regime change without doing nation building. We can just kill. We can kill foreign leaders. We can do stuff, and we don't have to pay the bill, right?
Yeah, well, but in fairness, I mean, a lot of thoughtful Americans and a lot of Democrats are saying, "Look, this was a bad regime. We're glad that the Ayatollah is dead." I mean,
right? This is like, you have the "if you break it, you bought it" community, which includes a lot of Republicans and almost all Democrats, right? The thing that says, "Okay, now what are you going to do?"
Yeah.
And the answer is, and we're arming Kurds. You could give us chapter and verse, Bill, on what happens when the Kurds get fired up.
Oh yeah,
right. And how Turkey and I mean, all of the reasons that the United States had not done this in the previous 50 years may be wrong, or they may be overinterpreted, and Trump may be right that it's like you can just do things, or they may have had a point, and it's probably somewhere in between. It's probably this and that and all of this stuff. But when you look at that Fox poll on the popularity of the war, it's 50-50. And then you open up the yay 50 side, and it's 92-8 Republicans, right?
Yeah.
And you open the lid on the other side and you look in, and what you see is that Democrats are obviously strongly opposed, but so are independents. And then you drill further down, because they have all the delicious crosstabs that you can go into. Who is it unpopular with? Give me white women without college degrees. Give me working class white women, massively unpopular. So you can start, I'm going to do it on Sunday, but go riffle through those crosstabs and look at where among independents, there is opposition to this war. Look at among Republicans where there is opposition to this war.
Yeah.
These voters did not vote for Donald Trump because they believe that Donald Trump is the Messiah. They voted for Donald Trump because they were sick of Joe Biden. They did not want Kamala Harris. They were sick of high prices. They were sick of feeling trapped in their economy, and they wanted to go back to what it was like. And the answer to our answer to David Hill is the same as for Mr. Clark, which is, tell me how it goes, right?
Check back with me.
Is it politically consequential?
Well, you brought up the Pottery Barn rule that Colin Powell made famous. He said, Pottery Barn, you walk into the store, you break it, you bought it, right? But maybe Trump thinks that he could just break it and just, let's just walk out of the store. I don't need to buy anything.
I didn't want that in the first place. I didn't want that
Let's see
ceramic
somebody
vase
stop
in the
me.
first place.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. Chris, that's all the time we have this week. We are, again, I'm Bill Sammon, joined by my old pal, Chris Stirewalt. We both work at The Hill and News Nation. Chris is the author of Whole Hog Politics, which is a must-read political newsletter that appears in The Hill each week. So we will see you all next week on another exciting episode of Whole Hog Politics.
Heck yeah.